It started as an ordinary evening, or at least I thought it was. I had just returned from work when I noticed my wife, Clara, sitting on the couch with an unusual tension in her shoulders. Her phone buzzed constantly, and she seemed unusually nervous. I didn't notice it at first. I was tired, preoccupied, but the unease grew when she suddenly avoided my gaze. That night, under the pretense of explaining her long hours at work, she admitted to something that shattered the foundation of our marriage. She had been seeing someone else for months. The confession hit me like a physical blow. I sank into the chair across from her, words failing me. Betrayal is a strange thing. It isn't just emotional. It seeps into your bones, your sense of reality. I felt sick, angry, and bewildered all at once. My wife, the person I had trusted with everything, had been living a double life. My first reaction was silence, the kind of stunned silence that precedes a storm. Over the next few days, I tried to process what had happened. I gathered my thoughts, kept a diary of the events, and considered my options. I didn't want to make a rash decision, but I also couldn't ignore the betrayal. Clara's affair wasn't just a mistake. It was ongoing, deliberate, and carefully hidden. My mind kept circling back to every moment in our marriage, every act of trust I had extended, every time I had assumed loyalty and love. All of it now felt tainted by her deception. I decided to confide in my mother, hoping for advice, maybe even solace. When I explained the situation, detailing Clara's affair and the impact it had on me emotionally, I expected outrage, empathy, or at the very least, some shared anger. Instead, my mother's response was the last thing I expected. "Jack, the kids are grown. She deserves to live for herself." I stared at her, incredulous. Live for herself? Mom, she cheated. She betrayed me, our marriage, our family. My voice shook, anger and disbelief blending into one. Mom sighed, leaning back in her chair. Yes, she cheated. Yes, it was wrong. But the kids are adults now, and you can't hold someone prisoner for the rest of their life. People make mistakes, Jack, and sometimes they just need to find their own path. If she's unhappy, this is her chance to find herself. Her words cut into me in a way I hadn't anticipated. Part of me wanted to scream, to argue, to demand that she see the betrayal for what it was. But another part of me knew she had a point. The kids were grown. They had their own lives, their own stability. Clara wasn't risking the well-being of our children anymore. She was, in essence, taking a risk with herself, and that was something I couldn't control. Despite my mother's defense, my emotions didn't calm. I wrestled with rage and heartbreak. I found myself retracing every moment of our marriage. The late-night talks, the holidays, the anniversaries, all of it now shaded by the knowledge of her infidelity. Yet, alongside the anger, I felt a strange sense of inevitability. Perhaps this was the life she had been searching for, and perhaps it wasn't meant to include me. I confronted Clara again, determined to understand her motivations. She admitted that she had been feeling restless for years, trapped by routines, expectations, and obligations that she believed no longer suited her. Her affair, she claimed, was an attempt to feel alive again, to reclaim a sense of freedom she thought she had lost. She didn't justify her actions. I could see the guilt in her eyes, but she wanted me to understand that it wasn't about lack of love for me, or hatred, but about her own personal dissatisfaction. It was a complex explanation, one I struggled to digest. Betrayal, after all, is rarely simple. It comes wrapped in human desires, insecurities, and failures. I could hate her, yes, but understanding the why was more complicated. The affair wasn't an accident. It was a symptom of a deeper unhappiness she had ignored for too long. Mom's words echoed in my mind repeatedly. She deserves to live for herself. Initially, they felt like a betrayal in themselves, as if she were excusing Clara's actions. But slowly, I realized that there was a truth there I couldn't deny. People do have the right to pursue their happiness, even when it causes pain to those around them. My role now wasn't to punish her or to exact revenge. It was to protect myself, acknowledge my pain, and navigate the next steps with clarity. I began taking steps to redefine my life. I focused on my own career, my own hobbies, and rebuilding the social connections I had neglected over the years. I sought therapy to process the emotional fallout, to understand how to forgive, or at least coexist with the betrayal without letting it dominate my identity. At the same time, I maintained a polite but firm boundary with Clara. We had to manage shared responsibilities, particularly when it came to the children, but I refused to allow her choices to control my emotional well-being. Over time, Clara began to live her new life. She moved out, rented an apartment, and began seeing the man she had pursued during her affair. The transition was hard for both of us, but necessary. She occasionally reached out, seeking reassurance, connection, or perhaps forgiveness. But I kept our interactions limited, focusing instead on maintaining my own stability and well-being. What struck me most during this period was the shift in perspective that came with time. The initial anger and devastation gave way to a strange clarity. I realized that holding on to resentment would only harm me. Clara's actions were her responsibility, not mine. My responsibility was to myself, my happiness, and my future. Mom's advice, which had initially felt infuriating, became a guiding principle. Sometimes the best response to betrayal isn't punishment, but the quiet reclamation of your own life. In retrospect, the experience reshaped my understanding of relationships, boundaries, and human behavior. Betrayal is painful, yes, but it also reveals truths about the people we thought we knew. Clara's choices reflected her dissatisfaction, her desires, and her failures, not a reflection of my worth or my efforts. Recognizing this distinction allowed me to separate my self-esteem from her actions, an essential step in healing. Over the next year, I rebuilt my life in tangible ways. I traveled, pursued long-abandoned passions, and reconnected with old friends. I established routines that nurtured my mental and physical health, and I allowed myself to be open to new relationships, while never rushing or forcing emotional recovery. Through it all, I maintained a careful awareness of the lessons I had learned. The importance of self-respect, the necessity of boundaries, and the reality that some people's happiness comes at the cost of honesty. The children, now adults, played a crucial role in my healing. They offered support, love, and perspective. Their independence meant that Clara's decisions did not jeopardize their well-being, and that gave me a measure of relief. Watching them thrive despite the chaos their mother introduced reinforced my commitment to protecting what I could control: my life and my choices. By the end of the second year after the revelation, I had achieved a balance I never thought possible immediately after discovering the affair. Clara had fully embraced her new life. I had fully reclaimed mine. And the past, while not forgotten, no longer dictated my emotions or actions. I had learned to accept that betrayal is a part of life, that human beings are complex and flawed, and that the healthiest response often involves focusing inward, on healing and growth, rather than seeking retribution. Mom's words, once infuriating, had proven to be prophetic. She had seen something I couldn't in the immediate aftermath of betrayal. The value of perspective, the importance of allowing others to pursue their lives, even when they hurt us, and the necessity of reclaiming one's own path in the face of disruption. Her wisdom helped me navigate the emotional minefield, guiding me toward clarity and eventual peace. In the years that followed, I maintained a cautious but civil relationship with Clara. We interacted when necessary, but our lives were distinct, defined by boundaries and mutual respect rather than intimacy or expectation. I focused on my growth, my happiness, and the relationships I chose to nurture, ensuring that past betrayals did not dictate future possibilities. Ultimately, the experience redefined my understanding of love, trust, and forgiveness. Betrayal does not negate one's capacity for joy or fulfillment. It merely reshapes the path toward them. Clara's affair was devastating, yes, but it also offered an opportunity for introspection, growth, and the reclamation of agency over my own life. I learned to protect myself emotionally, to prioritize my happiness, and to recognize that some people's journey toward self-realization comes at the expense of others. But that doesn't require us to remain victims. Looking back, I understood that Mom had been right all along. Clara deserved to live for herself, just as I deserved to live fully for myself. The choices she made were hers. The life I rebuilt was mine. By accepting this truth, I found peace, resilience, and a renewed sense of purpose. Betrayal may have marked a chapter of my life, but it did not define its conclusion. I emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace the life I had fought to reclaim.